Malia Johnson had it all. Wealth, fame, the perfect life. But beneath the glamour was a secret no one saw coming. She was a kleptomaniac, stealing little things she could easily afford. Rings, scarves, jewelry. Just to fill a void she couldn't explain. Until one night she took a watch. Not just any watch. A priceless heirloom owned by billionaire Elijah Cole. That one mistake didn't just expose her secret. It shattered everything she thought she knew about herself. Malia Johnson was the kind of girl headlines were made for. Her face had graced society magazines. Her name whispered at elite cocktail parties. The only daughter of renowned tech tycoon, Chief Johnson, and fashion entrepreneur Lady Tasha. She had never known life outside of private jets, silk sheets, and chauffeur-driven Bentleys. At just 20, she studied international business at the prestigious Regal Crest University, where students wore designer labels like uniforms and parked sports cars beside lecture halls. Her dorm was a penthouse suite. Her credit cards had no limits. But behind her designer smile was a secret no one saw coming. Malia was a kleptomaniac, not a thief, not a criminal, but someone who battled an unseen war within herself. The urge would come like a whisper, soft, convincing, a ring on a friend's dresser, simple, vintage, probably inherited. Malia had seen it while her friend was in the bathroom, music playing low, laughter still fresh from a shared story. It wasn't flashy or expensive, but the sight of it unlocked something inside her. Her hand moved almost involuntarily. She slipped it into her purse. Her friend never noticed, and Malia never wore it. But the weight of it in her bag gave her an odd sense of control. At a fashion show after-party, surrounded by models, designers, and champagne, she had spotted a delicate silk scarf, a limited edition Hermes piece, folded neatly over the back of a chair. Its owner was busy greeting the press. No one saw Malia's fingers trace the hem, then lift it like a whisper. She slipped it into her clutch. The adrenaline was quiet, not loud like guilt, but still sharp. That night she lay in bed, just holding the scarf. Her heart was calm, her mind still. Then, at a dinner party hosted by her parents, the temptation struck again. A silver spoon, antique and ornate, part of a set older than she was. It wasn't even hers to steal. It belonged to a guest. Yet, when no one was looking, she tucked it under her coat. Not for its value, not out of need, but because her mind whispered, "Take it, and everything will be okay." She didn't understand why she did it. It wasn't something she planned. And afterward, it wasn't pride she felt, not guilt either, just peace. A strange kind of peace, like someone had turned down all the noise in her head. On the outside, her life looked perfect, every detail polished, every move graceful. But inside there were cracks no one could see. And in those cracks, Malia fought a quiet war, a war no one ever noticed, a war that only paused when she gave in, and took something that wasn't hers. Her parents, too busy building their empire to notice the cracks forming in their daughter, too busy conquering the world, to see what was breaking at home. The only person who knew the truth was Nathan, her private bodyguard, ex-military, now full-time damage control. Every time she slipped something into her handbag at a boutique, he'd quietly pay for it. No questions, no judgment, no scenes, just silence and loyalty. One day she walked into Chateau Luxe, the most exclusive designer store in Victoria Island. She spent $2 million on clothes that day. No hesitation, no second thoughts. But before she left, she still tucked a tiny gold brooch into her purse. It was small, useless. And she didn't even like it, Nathan saw. He didn't speak. He just sighed and walked up to the counter, paid for it, quietly, before anyone could notice. But Malia noticed, and she hated herself for it. She didn't want to steal. She didn't need to steal. But she couldn't stop. It was a private charity gala, and Malia was dressed in a glittering silver gown. The gala shimmered like a dream. Gold chandeliers, champagne flowing, dresses that sparkled like stars. She moved through the crowd like she belonged, because she did, at least on the outside. But inside, there was noise, there was guilt, and there was silence. That brooch from earlier still sat quietly in her purse, heavy, invisible, loud in her head. she kept whispering to herself. Tonight would be different. No stealing, no slipping things into hidden pockets, no shame. But then she wandered into the restricted lounge, and there it was, sitting inside a glass case, unlabeled, untouched, a vintage silver pocket watch, small enough to fit in her palm. On its face, a carved lion, just like the one on her family crest. Her heart clenched. Her fingers trembled. Nathan was outside. The cameras didn't reach this far. The lights were low. She knew better. She knew. But the ache in her chest was louder than reason. She looked around once, twice. Then she slipped the watch into her purse. Hours later, he arrived. Elijah Cole. Quiet. Commanding. Dressed in a black tux. No smile, no wasted movement. The billionaire rarely appeared at public events. But this night was personal. It was the annual charity gala his late brother had started. And tonight Elijah came to honor him. He stepped into the lounge, his shoes silent on the marble, eyes focused, unbothered by the applause outside. He walked straight to the display case, expecting to find the watch, the one that once belonged to his brother. But the glass was empty. His chest tightened. That wasn't just a timepiece. It was the last gift his brother ever gave him. Elijah had just recovered it from a private collector. And now, it had vanished again. The event turned chaotic behind the scenes. Silent panic. Elijah leaned close to his assistant, his voice low and controlled. Check the surveillance. Discreetly. No media. No noise. In a quiet back room, the footage played. There, clear as day, Malia, slipping past the velvet rope, opening the case, taking the watch. The room fell still. The security team looked to Elijah, awaiting orders. His expression didn't change. Calm, measured. But something in his eyes had hardened. Don't call the police, he said quietly. I'll deal with this, personally. That night, Malia couldn't sleep. She didn't know the full story behind the watch. But she knew one thing for sure. She had made a mistake. She had crossed a line she couldn't take back. Even Nathan, who rarely said a word, noticed something was off. As he drove her home, he kept glancing at her, his eyes cautious, unsure. Malia said nothing. The silence between them was heavy. The next morning, a black envelope was waiting at her door. No stamp, no name, no return address. Inside was a single note written in bold black ink. Give back what you took, or I'll come find you. EC! Her hands trembled. Who was EC? And why did the air around her suddenly feel so heavy? She had no idea that this wasn't just about a stolen object. It was about her past, her future, and a man who would challenge everything she thought she knew about herself. Malia stared at the note for the 100th time. Give back what you took, or I'll come find you. EC! Her heart pounded. It couldn't be about the watch. Could it? She pulled it out of the velvet pouch she'd hidden deep in her purse. It gleamed in her palm, cold and heavy. A lion carved into its face, majestic and proud. Now that she looked closer, the initials EC were etched inside. Her fingers went numb. Nathan walked in without knocking. You look pale, he said calmly, but his eyes were sharp, watchful. Did you take something again? Malia hesitated, then gave a small nod. Nathan let out a long, heavy sigh, like he was carrying something too big for one person. You have to stop, he said quietly. I'm trying, she whispered. He sat down next to her. Do you even know who it belongs to? She shook her head. I got a letter this morning, she said. No name, but it said to return it, or he'll come find me. The initials were EC. Nathan pulled out his phone, typed something quickly, and turned the screen toward her. A news photo filled the screen. A tall, serious man in a dark suit, his face cold, powerful, confident. Headlines surrounded the image. Elijah Cole, tech billionaire returns to city for memorial gala. The watch lost in the plane crash, finally recovered by Elijah Cole. Malia's face went pale. Her chest tightened. That watch was his? She asked, barely above a whisper. Nathan nodded. His brother died in that crash. The watch was the last thing he gave him. Elijah just got it back after 7 years. He looked at her carefully. And now you have it. Malia's hands shook. She felt sick. Later that evening, Malia stood outside Cole Towers, the sleek skyscraper that pierced the city skyline. Her driver waited at a distance. Nathan stood by her side, arms folded, unreadable. You're not a criminal, Malia, he said gently. But if you don't face this, you might become one. Her heels clicked softly on the marble as she walked into the lobby. The receptionist didn't even ask her name, just nodded. He's expecting you. She was led up 32 floors to a glass office that looked over the city. Inside, surrounded by silence and shadows, stood Elijah Cole. He didn't look angry. He looked disappointed. I knew you'd come, he said, voice deep and calm. You didn't strike me as someone who hides forever. Malia's mouth went dry. She opened her purse and slowly pulled out the watch. I'm sorry, she said quietly. I don't even know why I took it. I can't seem to stop myself. Elijah didn't take the watch from her hand. He just looked at her, not at the dress, not at the purse, at her. You have a problem, he said, voice calm but firm. And I'm not calling the police. He paused for a moment, then added, I know who you are, Malia. Chief Johnson's only daughter. You can afford anything you want. Another pause. Longer this time. But you're gonna make this right. With me. Malia stood frozen, the weight of the watch still in her outstretched hand. Elijah didn't move. He didn't take it. He didn't even blink. I'm not calling the police, he said again, voice low and even. But if you think this ends with an apology, you're wrong. Her lips parted, trying to form words, but nothing came. Then Elijah finally stepped forward. He took the watch gently from her palm, his touch brief but deliberate, like it meant something. He turned and walked to the window, eyes fixed on the glowing city below. My brother gave me this, he said quietly. It was the last thing I had of him, the last thing that reminded me of him, until it was gone. Silence. Malia looked down at the floor. I didn't know, I swear. You didn't care to know, he replied, turning to face her. That's the problem. Her eyes welled with shame. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Not even her parents. Especially not her parents. Then Elijah did something she didn't expect. He sat down, calmly, intentionally. You're not a thief, Malia, he said. You're sick. But you've built your world so perfect that no one's ever forced you to face it. Malia's breath caught in her throat. I'm giving you a choice, he continued. You can walk out of here, go back to your mansion, your parties, your secrets, and pray no one else ever finds out, or... She lifted her eyes slowly. You stay, for 1 month. Work with me. Live differently. Earn trust the hard way. I'll help you. But I won't coddle you. Her heart slammed against her ribs. Live with him? Why? She asked, voice trembling. Why would you even offer that? Elijah leaned forward, his voice soft but firm. Because I know what it's like to lose control and have no one notice. Silence filled the room again, heavy with truth. Malia didn't answer right away, but something inside her cracked, maybe for the first time. Someone really saw her. That night, Malia couldn't sleep. She kept hearing Elijah's words in her head, over and over again. And by morning, she had made up her mind. She would do it. She would move in with him. For 1 month. To try. To change. To see if healing was still possible. The car was quiet as it pulled through the tall silver gates of Elijah Cole's estate. The mansion stood on a private hill, wrapped in silence, and surrounded by trimmed hedges and cold beauty. It wasn't just a house, it was a fortress. And tonight, it would become Malia's new home. She sat in the back seat, dressed in simple clothes now. No designer logos, no heels, just a plain blouse and jeans. Elijah had insisted she leave behind her old wardrobe for now. You're not here to impress anyone, he had said. You're here to find yourself. Nathan hadn't argued. But his goodbye was quiet and stiff. "I'll be waiting if you need me," he had whispered at the gate. Inside, the house was spotless, all glass and marble and silence. A housekeeper greeted her with a nod, not a smile. No one treated her like a princess here. Elijah met her in the study. No suit this time, just a black sweater and gray pants. He handed her a piece of paper. "These are the rules." She blinked. "Rules?" He nodded. "You're on a schedule. Wake up at 6. Daily therapy sessions. Work hours from 9 to 4 in my office downstairs. No online shopping. No malls. No assistants. No designer deliveries." "What kind of work?" she asked. "You'll help run my foundation. Real people. Real problems. No filters." She swallowed hard. "What if I mess up?" "You will," he said flatly. "But that's the point." Later that night, Malia stood by the window of her new room. It was beautiful but cold. No gold-trimmed mirrors, no walk-in closet. Just a bed, a desk, a window. And yet, something felt oddly safe. For the first time in years, no one expected her to be perfect. And that scared her more than anything. But somewhere deep down, a tiny voice whispered, "Maybe this is what you needed all along." The next morning, Malia rose at 6:1 a.m. No alarm needed. She barely slept. She dressed in plain clothes again and tied her hair back, not for style, but for simplicity. Something about Elijah's world felt stripped down, honest, and oddly grounding. Downstairs, breakfast was quiet. Just fruit, oats, and tea. By 9:00 a.m., Malia was seated beside Elijah in his sleek black SUV. Their destination wasn't what she expected. A small worn-out concrete building with peeling paint and a faded sign that read, "Cole Foundation Center for Families in Crisis." Malia had never been to this part of the city. She glanced out the window at dusty roads, crowded bus stops, and barefoot children running in alleyways. Her stomach turned. Inside the center, the air smelled of disinfectant and hope. Dozens of women sat in a waiting area, some with toddlers asleep in their laps. Others held forms with shaking hands. A boy, no older than 6, was crying quietly in a corner because he hadn't eaten that morning. Elijah gave her a folder. "Start here. Intake forms. Listen. Don't just ask questions. Hear their answers." She sat at a desk and called the first name. The woman who sat across from her had holes in her dress and a baby clinging to her chest. She had lost her husband, her home. She hadn't fed her kids in 2 days. Malia's voice wavered as she filled the form. By noon, she had heard over a dozen stories, each more heartbreaking than the last. Fathers begging for school fees. Mothers ashamed to admit they were skipping meals to feed their babies. Children too thin for their age. Something broke inside her. That evening, she sat alone in the garden behind the foundation building. Her hands were shaking. Elijah found her there. "You did well today," he said gently. "I didn't do anything," she whispered. "They don't have food, Elijah. And I have everything. I was stealing earrings I didn't even like while children cry over hunger." Her voice cracked. "I've been blind." He didn't say, "It's okay." He didn't lie. He just sat beside her. "You were hurting in a different way," he said. "Pain doesn't always look poor." Malia turned to him. "I want to change. I want to give, not take." Elijah nodded. "Then start here. Start small, but start." She took a deep breath. For the first time, her hands weren't itching to take something. They were ready to give. The next week passed differently. Malia no longer counted hours in luxury spas or boutiques. Now she counted bags of rice distributed, forms processed, and school uniforms handed out. She organized files, learned names, played with children during breaks. She smiled. Not the perfect photo-ready smile from her social media days, but something real, something soft. Each morning she woke up before sunrise. Not because Elijah told her to, but because she wanted to. She began collecting small donations through friends from school, and even called her father's assistant anonymously, to redirect some unused inventory from her mother's fashion line to struggling girls at the foundation. But she didn't tell her parents where she was. They hadn't even noticed her absence. One afternoon, Malia helped a little boy named Tomiwa tie his shoes. He was 8, thin as a stick, and had just lost his mother to illness. When she handed him a backpack full of supplies, he hugged her tight and whispered, "Thank you, Auntie." Her heart melted. In that moment, the old Malia, the one obsessed with appearances, vanished. Elijah watched from the hallway, arms folded, a soft smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. Later, as they walked back to the car, he broke the silence. "You're changing," he said. "I feel it," she replied. "For the first time, I feel like I'm enough, even without the brands, the mansion, the fake smiles." He glanced sideways at her. "You were always enough, Malia. You just didn't know where to look." She stopped walking, turned to him. "Elijah, why are you helping me? You barely knew me. I stole from you." He met her gaze, quiet and steady. "Because someone once saved me when I was spiraling, and because—" He paused, choosing his words. "I see myself in you. Not the stealing, the pain behind it." Her breath caught in her throat. There was something different in the way he looked at her now. Not cold, not distant, but close. Too close. And suddenly, her heart wasn't just full of gratitude. It was full of questions. Was this still about healing? Or was something deeper starting to bloom between them? She wasn't sure. But as she looked at Elijah in the fading light, one thing was certain. This was only the beginning. It had been 3 weeks. 3 weeks since Malia left her old world behind. 3 weeks since she last lied, last stole, last felt like a ghost in her own skin. Every day at the foundation brought something new. A widow needing a job, a malnourished child finally gaining weight, a teenager who wanted to learn tailoring. Malia had begun managing the Girl Mentorship Program, helping teenage girls stay in school, with scholarships and pads donated by small brands. She felt alive, rooted, becoming someone else. No, becoming herself for the first time. Peace doesn't make a sound, but chaos does. And it showed up on a Tuesday. Elijah was in a meeting. Malia was in the storeroom sorting notebooks when she heard a voice outside. A voice she knew too well. Malia, are you in there? What is this place?" Her heart sank. It was Mira, her former best friend, fashion influencer, spoiled, loud, and the queen of drama. Malia rushed out, heart pounding. Mira stood in the middle of the foundation lobby in high heels and sunglasses, looking disgusted by everything around her. "What are you doing here?" Malia hissed, grabbing her arm and pulling her aside. "You've been missing for weeks!" Mira snapped. "I came to your dorm. Nothing. Your mom called me, freaking out. Then I find out you're working in some refugee center?" "It's not a refugee center," Malia said, her voice steady. "It's a family support foundation, and I'm not missing. I'm healing." Mira raised an eyebrow. "Healing? What do you mean? Are you sick or something? Babe, seriously, what's going on?" Malia froze. Her face burned with shame. Mira let out a scoff. "Girl, just look at you. No lashes, no heels, no PR events. And now you're working for some random rich guy? Tell me, is he paying you? Or are you paying him in other ways?" Malia felt her chest tighten. Before she could respond, a calm, deep voice echoed behind them. "She's here because she wants to be." Elijah, standing tall, steady, watching. Mira blinked. "Oh, you're Elijah Cole." "Yes, and you're interrupting." Mira rolled her eyes, muttered something under her breath, and stormed out. Malia stood frozen. Elijah stepped closer. "Are you okay?" Malia nodded slowly. "I thought I was. But seeing her, it felt like my old life was pulling me back." He looked at her with quiet understanding. "You'll have to choose, Malia. Not just once, but every single day." Tears filled her eyes. "I want this life, Elijah. The real one. But it's hard. And it hurts." He gave her a soft, rare smile. Good. That means it's real. And it's worth it. Then he touched her hand, just for a moment. But the warmth stayed with her. This wasn't just about healing anymore. It was about love. And this time, she wasn't going to take it by force. She was going to earn it. The dusty community hall buzzed with excitement. Children squealed with joy, running barefoot across the courtyard. Volunteers carried in boxes of supplies, their shirts soaked with sweat, but faces glowing with purpose. Malia stood at the center of it all, clipboards in hand, hair pulled into a neat ponytail, dressed in a simple navy blouse and jeans. There were no flashing cameras, no Instagram filters, and for once, she didn't want any. She was alive in this space, awake, present. This was real. Let's sort the packs by age group, she called out. We have 200 girls registered so far, and I want each one to get a letter inside their bag. Something personal. The initiative was her idea. Backpacks of hope. Each backpack had exercise books, pens, soap, a snack, and a handwritten note. Malia had written the first 20 letters herself. You are smart. You are beautiful. And your dreams matter. As she watched the first group of girls receive their backpacks, Malia blinked back tears. So many of them looked like who she might have been, if she hadn't grown up in a mansion, flown on private jets, or been wrapped in the glossy lie of a perfect life. Then something caught her eye. A little girl, no older than 7, stood at the corner of the tent, hiding behind a pillar. Her small fingers were slipping a toy doll into her pocket when she thought no one was watching. Malia froze. For a second, the past gripped her, but then something new happened. She walked toward the girl quietly. Knelt. What's your name? The girl flinched. Tayo. Malia smiled gently and opened her backpack. Tayo, do you know I used to take things too? Not because I needed them, but because I felt empty inside. The girl looked up, surprised. Malia reached in and gave her the doll, this time as a gift. You don't have to take it, Malia said softly. It's already yours. The girl's eyes widened, then filled with tears. She hugged the doll tightly and whispered, Thank you. Malia stood up slowly, and for the first time, she didn't feel like someone hiding from her past. She felt like someone building a new future. And in the distance, leaning against the truck, Elijah watched her with quiet pride. This wasn't the same girl he met a month ago. She was becoming something greater, and he knew. The world hadn't seen the best of Malia Johnson yet. The rain tapped gently against the tall windows of the mansion. The sky outside was heavy, clouded in gray. But inside the warm glow of the study, a quiet fire flickered in the fireplace. Malia sat curled on the edge of the velvet sofa, barefoot, a soft throw over her shoulders. She was reading donor letters, sorting through requests for support, when Elijah walked in. No shoes, sleeves rolled up, and something unreadable in his eyes. You're working late, he said. She looked up. So are you. He sat across from her, holding 2 mugs of tea. One for her, one for him. Thanks, she said, smiling. They sat in silence for a while, not awkward, just peaceful. Then he broke it. You asked me why I helped you, Elijah said. She nodded, watching him carefully. My brother, he began slowly, was everything I wasn't. Warm, soft, kind. When our parents died, he raised me, taught me how to build, how to feel. He gave me this watch. He tapped the silver chain on his wrist. And when he died? Elijah's voice broke for a second. I froze, shut down. I stopped trusting people. I built this company, this mansion, all of it, just to stay busy. Malia's eyes softened. You helped everyone but yourself, she whispered. He looked at her, a slight smile touching his lips. And then you walked into my life like a hurricane in heels and stole the one thing I cared about. She laughed softly. I'm sorry about that. He leaned in slightly. You gave it back. But more than that, you reminded me how to feel again. Her breath caught. Their eyes locked. For a moment, everything else faded. The money, the pain, the past. All that remained was the weight of the moment and the electricity in the space between them. Then she looked away, breaking the tension. I'm scared, she said. Of what? Of being loved before I fully love myself. Elijah stood up slowly and walked toward her. He sat beside her, close but not too close. Then I'll wait, he said. Malia's eyes shimmered. Not forever, she whispered. And this time they smiled together, a real smile, not because they were healed, but because they were healing, together. The gates of the Johnson estate opened slowly, revealing the same marble driveway, the same manicured roses, the same spotless water fountain in the center. But something had changed. Malia. She stepped out of the car in flat shoes and a modest white dress. No designer logo in sight, no security entourage. Just her. And her truth. Inside, the grand house buzzed with silence. Her mother was in the living room, scrolling on her tablet. Her father was on the phone in his office. They both looked up when she walked in, and froze. Malia? Her mother said, standing. Where have you... What happened? Your hair, your skin... You look... real? Malia said gently. Her father stepped out. We've been worried sick. You didn't call. You vanished. No. Malia interrupted, her voice steady. You didn't notice I was gone. Not really. You were busy building empires while your daughter was drowning in silence. Her mother sat down slowly, confused. Malia, I'm not here to blame, she said. I'm here to confess. She reached into her handbag and pulled out a small notebook. Inside were names, dates, and items she had taken over the years. Rings, lipsticks, jewelry. A scarf from her aunt's wedding. I'm not a thief, she said, voice trembling. I'm a girl who grew up thinking I had to take to feel something, because no one ever gave me attention or asked how I felt. Her mother's eyes welled up. Her father sat down, stunned. I've been living at Elijah Cole's foundation. Malia continued. I've seen what true poverty looks like. Children who cry from hunger, parents who pray for school shoes. I was born with everything, and I still thought I had nothing. Silence, heavy, long. Then, her father whispered, we didn't know how to raise a hurting child with full hands. Her mother began to cry, softly, shamefully. Malia walked over and hugged her. Then her father. I forgive you, she said. But I need you to see me now, as I am, not as you imagined me to be. And for the first time in years, her parents didn't see their perfect daughter. They saw their real one, wounded, healing, whole. That night, Malia slept in her childhood room, stripped of old glamour, surrounded by memories. But this time, she didn't feel small. She felt ready. Ready for the next chapter of her life. Ready for love. The ballroom was filled with light. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above. Golden fabric draped the walls, and rows of guests filled the seats. Philanthropists, community leaders, celebrities, and everyday people who had been touched by the Cole Foundation's work. But none of them were the reason tonight felt different. Tonight, Malia was the keynote speaker. She stood backstage, breathing slowly, hands slightly trembling. Elijah appeared beside her, calm as ever in a tailored navy suit. You don't have to be perfect, he said quietly. Just be honest. She looked at him. That's all I've ever wanted to be, he nodded. Then go change the room. As she stepped onto the stage, silence fell. No script, no notes, just a heart full of truth. Good evening, she began, voice steady. My name is Malia Johnson. You may know my family. You may have seen my face. But tonight, I want to tell you something I've never said out loud. She paused, swallowed. I used to steal things, not because I needed them, but because I didn't know who I was without taking. A soft murmur stirred through the crowd. Shock, curiosity, emotion. My home was filled with diamonds, she continued, but empty of love. My closet overflowed, but my heart was starving. And one day, I stole something that didn't belong to me. Something precious, from someone I'd never met. Her gaze drifted toward the front row. Elijah Cole didn't call the police. He called me to be better, and I did. Tears shimmered in her eyes, but her voice didn't break. Love, she said, isn't something you take. It's something you give, and it changes you. Quietly, completely, from the inside out. She paused, exhaled. And I'm still learning, still healing, but for the first time, I love the woman I'm becoming. For a moment the room held its breath. Then applause rose, slow, reverent, thunderous. A standing ovation, not for wealth, not for name, but for truth. Elijah stood, not in urgency, not for attention, just calm, sure steps toward her. He walked up onto the stage and stood beside her, quiet, grounding. Then he turned to her, eyes warm with emotion. Malia, he said, voice low but clear. You didn't just give back a watch. You gave me hope. You gave this world your truth, and you gave yourself a second chance. She looked at him, tears glistening now, but with a steady smile. They didn't say anything more. They didn't have to. And in that moment, under the soft lights of the ballroom and the gaze of a changed crowd, Malia didn't feel like a girl trying to take something that wasn't hers. She was a woman who had finally learned how to give, and in doing so, she found everything that mattered. The ballroom was quiet now. The applause had faded, but Malia could still feel it echoing in her heart. The lights were low, and the guests had all gone. Outside, the night was cool. City lights glowed in the distance, and the air smelled faintly of rain. Malia and Elijah walked side by side. His jacket was around her shoulders, her heels in one hand. They didn't say much, just smiled softly, still feeling the weight of the night. You were amazing tonight, Elijah said. Malia looked ahead and smiled. I wasn't trying to be, he nodded. That's what made it real. They stopped by the car, but neither of them got in right away. Malia looked up at him, her voice quiet. So, what happens now? Elijah held her gaze. Calm, certain. Now, he said, we build something real. Slowly, one day at a time. She didn't need more than that. She reached for his hand, not to take something, but simply to hold it. And for the first time in her life, Malia didn't feel like someone hiding a secret. She felt like someone who had something good to give. She no longer needed to take what wasn't hers, because now she was someone who gave, and in giving she found something she never expected. Peace, purpose, and a love that waited until she was truly ready. The end. If you love this story, make sure to like the video and subscribe to my channel for more captivating stories like this one.